Who will be Patrick Mahomes' backup quarterback in 2023? That is the topic on today's Chiefs Report. I'm your host, Harrison Graham. Appreciate everybody for clicking on today's show. We're going to take a look at some Chad Henne replacements as the Chiefs' backup quarterback over the past 4 years announced his retirement. We'll take a look at 15 backup options for the 2023 season. And shout out Chad Henne, by the way, one of the all-time retirement posts on the field of Super Bowl 57, holding a Bud Light in one hand, championship Super Bowl t-shirt in the other, says, calling it a career, shouting out Bud Light there. You'll love to see it. The only thing that would have made this better is if he had a bottle of Henne in his other hand. But hey, anything is possible. Show Chad Henne some love. Type 4 in the comments. The way he finished that Browns game in the divisional game a few years ago, and then, of course, his role in the Jacksonville game this year, he certainly was worthwhile for Kansas City as a backup, and now they look to replace him. Type 4 to show Chad Henne some love and to wish him well in retirement. Now, before we get to some external options to be the backup, 15 of them, technically, we're talking about 16 quarterbacks today because Shane Buechele, who's been the third-string quarterback the past couple of years, is he ready to be that backup for Patrick Mahomes? He, of course, will enter the offseason as QB2, has never played in a regular season game, but he's gotten a lot of action in the preseason over the past couple of years. Here's what he did in this past year's preseason: 31 of 51, 335 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. He's looked pretty good in the preseason. Now, be mindful that a lot of that damage is, almost extensively against backups, in some cases against third and fourth stringers. So, it's not like he's going up against number one defenses in the preseason. So take it with a grain of salt. They obviously felt more comfortable with Henne as the true backup the past couple of years. So is he ready to be a QB2? I think he'll get his chance, but I would not be surprised at all if the Chiefs went out and signed a vet or at least drafted someone to bring in some competition. So let's look at some free agent quarterbacks first as potential backup options. Andy Dalton, who played last year with the Saints and spent most of the season as the starter, actually played fairly well. One of his better seasons since leaving Cincinnati a few years ago. He's kind of in that fringe starter, elite backup category right now. A lot of experience, just like Teddy Bridgewater, who will tie in here. Very similar. Doesn't have quite the playing experience that Dalton has, but what these two guys have in common is they have started a lot of games in the NFL. I mean, you look at their careers, completion percentage more in Teddy's favor, but Dalton, a guy who's been around for a while, almost thrown for 250 touchdowns in his career, has started over 150 games, has won 83 games. Teddy Bridgewater has 65 starts under his belt. So these are two guys that if they're your backup quarterback, you're feeling really, really good about that situation. They have valuable experience. They've played in a lot of big games. Dalton has played in several playoff games. So if worse came to worse and, Mahomes had a 4 to 6 week injury or something like that, obviously if he ever suffers a season-ending injury, you're not overcoming that. But what you want out of your backup is if your starter misses a month and a half, can the backup hold the fort? And I think these two guys, Andy Dalton and Teddy Bridgewater, could fit that mold. Chase Daniel, who could be a candidate to retire. We'll see what he ends up doing. He's going to be 37 next year, but he's bounced around and has been a valuable backup for several different teams, including Kansas City. He spent the 2013, 14, and 15 season with the Chiefs, and I remember one year actually beat the Chargers in a game, the team he's now with. Went 1-0. He's only started 5 career games, yet he keeps getting jobs. Obviously, teams value him. He would be kind of on the cheaper option, I would have to think. We got a new sponsor here at the Chiefs Report, and that is Cultivate, the free browser extension that brings you transparency to your Amazon shopping experience. Cultivate shows you the brand, seller, or product origin and identifies local alternatives that support local community efforts while saving you money. With over 50% of Amazon U.S. sellers based in China, Cultivate offers a way to avoid trickery from these sellers and keeps money in the United States economy. Cultivate offers alternatives that are on average 30% less expensive than Amazon without any additional costs, such as Amazon Prime. It can even identify local alternatives that you can pick up the same day. Cultivate users earn free donations as rewards for using the extension, and the more you use it, the more you earn in donations by increasing your level. In fact, Cultivate donates 51% of the revenue they make on your purchase. So, what are you waiting for? Go to wecultivate.us/chatsports. That's wecultivate.us cultivate.us/chatsports and download Cultivate for free. Yes, for free. Let Cultivate bring transparency, savings, and community support to your Amazon shopping journey. So support the show and download with our link today, wecultivate.us/chatsports. That link will be in the description and in the comments of today's video. It's Cultivate, wecultivate.us/chatsports. An interesting name here would be Baker Mayfield, who finished last year with the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Baker's probably going to look more for an opportunity where he sees a potential to either start or maybe start if a weird circumstance happens. Obviously, the only way you're starting in Kansas City is if Patrick Mahomes suffers an injury. Like, there's no chance that he's ever going to get benched. Is Baker worth it? I'm not sure. He brings, certain attitude, cockiness. That do you really want that out of your backup? It's kind of like Carson Wentz, right? Like, if Carson Wentz is your backup, is that worthwhile? I don't know if it is. I don't think Baker to Kansas City makes a ton of sense for either side. He might just stay with the Rams because Matthew Stafford could retire in the short-term future. He seemed to mesh pretty well with Sean McVay. Baker did, so we'll see what he decides to do. But he is a notable name that is set to enter free agency. Now, what say you? Do you think he's worth the risk? Would you sign Baker Mayfield as a backup quarterback? Type S for sign or P for pass. Curious what the Kingdom thinks on this one. Next up is Case Keenum, someone who's bounced around the league quite a bit, but has had success as well. Served as Josh Allen's backup quarterback last year. He, of course, led the Vikings to the NFC Championship game a handful of years ago. I think that was 2017. I would like Case Keenum. I think he's kind of a lesser Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater type where he started a lot of games in this league. And if he has to play, you feel good about that. Could be kind of a cheaper but solid backup quarterback option. Gardner Minshew's next up. He's kind of in that Baker category. Obviously, he wasn't the number one overall pick, but he's a young guy who has started a decent amount of games, 24 starts over 4 seasons. I do think he would be a better fit in a, culturally and in a locker room than Baker would because Baker wants to start. I'm sure Minshew does as well, but he's probably going to have less options to be on a team where he could compete for a starting job than maybe a Baker Mayfield would. But he could also cost a premium. Like Minshew might be an $8 million backup. So hard to say. I don't think the Chiefs will want to overpay for a backup. Chad Henne was $2 million last year. So keep that in mind as well because the Chiefs are obviously a team with a lot of big contracts. Our Chiefs coverage does not slow down during the NFL offseason. So this is really a great time to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want daily videos here on the Chiefs Report, hit that big subscribe button and we will continue to plug out videos on a daily basis. Here's an interesting one. How about Drew Lock? Drew Lock, who spent the first 3 seasons of his career in and out of the Broncos starting lineup, started a decent amount of games. He's a part of that Russell Wilson trade heading to Seattle. People thought, he probably will beat out Geno Smith. Does not. Geno has this awesome year, and Drew Lock served as the backup. But Drew Lock knows the AFC West well. He has a strong arm, so obviously you don't want Drew Lock to play, but he can do some decent things physically with his skill set. Obviously was very inconsistent as a starter in Denver, but a guy who knows this division and is still a young enough player that could be worth bringing in. Cooper Rush, who started a handful of games this year with the Dallas Cowboys. I wonder what his market looks like. Does he re-sign with Dallas? Does he follow Kellen Moore to the Chargers maybe as a backup option for Justin Herbert? We'll see in 5 games this year, 5 starts I should say. 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 58% completion. He's kind of a lower ceiling, higher floor type of guy. He's honestly a slightly more gifted Chase Daniel, I would say. He's not going to stretch a lot of teams downfield, but he takes care of the football, manages the game pretty well. The Cowboys went 4-1 with him this year when he started, so they were able to kind of keep things afloat while Dak Prescott was hurt. And really, that's all you can ask. If you told me Patrick Mahomes missed 5 games and your backup quarterback went 4-1, would you not take that? So could be a cheaper option too. Keep an eye on Cooper Rush. And then a couple of guys that we can reveal together here. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, they were in the same draft, of course. Winston went number 1, Mariota number 2. I believe that was the 2015 draft. Both guys have not lived up to expectations, but both guys have a lot of experience. Now, technically, they're not free agents yet, but the expectations is both of these guys will get cut, especially Mariota, but I think Winston gets cut as well. New Orleans and Atlanta can save over $10 million each if they cut these guys, and considering the Saints opted for Andy Dalton the rest of the season after Winston suffered a minor injury, I think that speaks volumes. And Mariota and the Saints, basically, they just let him leave the team. So I don't think they're going to retain him. You look at the career numbers here. Just inconsistent, right? Low 60s completion percentage. Both guys have shown capabilities of being decent NFL quarterbacks. Both have 34 wins. Both have 40 or more losses. But as a high-level backup, I would certainly take either of these guys. Now, remember, they could be in the category of okay, they don't enter camp as a starter for a team, but like the Jets, for example. Like, say the Jets miss on Rodgers and they want to bring in a vet like Winston or Mariota. One of those guys could have a chance to start there. So I don't think the Chiefs are going to pay heavy money for a backup, but they are two names that could be had. All right, who do you guys think is the better QB, and who would you rather have as Mahomes' backup? Type MM for Marcus Mariota or type JW for Jameis Winston? Take a quick look at some draft guys, and these are players that could go on day 3, a.k.a. rounds 4 through 7. Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker. I think he could go in the 3rd round still, but he is older. He has that torn ACL, so there's some thought that maybe he falls to the 4th or 5th. If he does, I mean, I'd bring him in as a backup. Stetson Bennett, obviously a winner, 2-time national champion. He's older as well, 25, 26 years old. Limited skill set, but as a day 3 guy, I think that's someone to compete with Shane Buechele, which I think most of these guys fall into that category. Max Duggan as well. Played against Shane Buechele once or twice in college also, as Buechele went to SMU. Jake Haener, who won Senior Bowl MVP out of Fresno State. And then BYU quarterback Jaren Hall. I think all these guys, especially the Final Four, would be more like competition for Buechele, make the best man win, and then whoever gets that ends up being the backup quarterback. So we'll see. I think Buechele has a good chance of earning that job, but I don't think that the Chiefs will just give it to him. I think Andy Reid, Brett Veach, they're going to want to bring someone in here, whether it's a vet or whether it's a day 3 draft pick at quarterback. I think there will be another name in the mix. So we'll see what happens. Best of luck to Chad Henne in retirement. Served as Mahomes' backup for 4 years, won 2 Super Bowls. That's a pretty sweet way to wrap up a career. Appreciate you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.